Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast. Now, one of the many reasons that I record this podcast every single day is the hope that one of these episodes will resonate with someone, somewhere, listening anywhere in the world. Maybe ignite a spark so that they can begin their own career in technology. Maybe become a founder or even a founder of the next unicorn. And one of the big topics I talk about a lot on this show is how the tech skill shortage is enabling anyone from any background with an opportunity to combine the transferable skills they have in their existing job role outside of tech and combine it with a few tech skills that they can learn in their spare time and change their career, transform their life as a result. And today's guest has been on that very same journey. And at the end of it, he ended up setting up his own company to help others do the same. And his name is Martin Ramsin. He's originally from Sweden, but currently in Berlin in Germany. And he's the founder and CEO of a company called CareerFoundry, which is essentially an online school helping anyone of any age switch to a career in technology. But without wanting to reveal any spoilers so early on in the show, I'm going to ask you to buckle up and hold on tight, because I'm going to beam your ears all the way to Berlin, where Martin is waiting to share his story. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Thanks, Neil. Very happy to be here. I'm Martin. I'm the founder and CEO of CareerFoundry. And CareerFoundry is an online school. People come to us to switch career into tech. And we've been doing that since almost 10 years. We started in 2013. And it's been a very interesting journey with lots of learning. So people that come to us, they are typically sort of stuck in their career, and they're looking to switch into tech, right? And they do that because they're looking for more creativity. Maybe they want to have more flexibility in their lives, things like that. Or they just want to future-proof their career. Yeah, they're kind of in a career they don't feel great about, and they want to switch. And so they come to us to do that.
And it's such an important topic right now, especially with certain industries or certain job roles being retired. And there's this huge job shortage in the tech industry. So it's a perfect time for anyone, regardless of their background, to pivot to a career in tech. And I'm looking forward to finding out more about that in a moment. But before we do, I'd love to find out a little bit more about how you got to your current role and how the worlds of education and technology would collide for you. So can I ask you share your origin story, where your passion for tech came from, or just a moment that would put you on this path you're on right now?
Sure. I think I've always been passionate about having a positive impact in the world. And I found that tech is the best way of actually be able to have that impact because of the scale of things that you can, have such a large impact on so many people with tech, right? And so that's how I think I got interested into tech is this idea of having an impact. And through my career, I've done a lot of different things, from working at Nokia and see that rise and fall. I was in San Francisco when the tech bubble burst in 2000. That's where I was just starting my career. And then I came back to Europe and I worked a couple of years in Berlin as a product manager in various startups. But I've always been interested in sort of having that impact. And the moment came for me when I actually got laid off from one of those startups. Yeah. And I had some time to think about what I wanted to do. And I just decided I wanted to learn something new. So I went online and I found this course in Ruby on Rails. And I took that course and learned the programming language. And then I was reflecting on that course and I thought that it was sort of so lonely and sort of there was so little support and community around that course that I took, that I was just thinking, why does it have to be that lonely when you're learning online?
Yeah.
And that was the starting point for what became then CareerFoundry.
What a great story. And of course, that path would lead you to become the founder and CEO of CareerFoundry, which is, as you said a few moments ago, an online school helping anyone switch to a career in tech. And you've lived and breathed this. And that's one of the reasons you're at the company now. But there's going to be many people listening all over the world thinking, maybe my career choice is the future of that is uncertain. I'm looking around, seeing that there's zero unemployment in cybersecurity. There's a huge tech shortage right over, but then they kind of convince themselves that they're not technical, etc. So, as someone that's lived and breathed this, can you tell me a little bit more about the company and how you're helping people?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, it's interesting because in tech, there's a lot of different professions, right? Yeah. Some of them are more technical than others. And take, for example, UX design, which is something that we teach. In this profession, you'd actually be working more with people than with the tech itself. And you'd try to find out, what are the needs of different people and how can we actually build products with technology. So yeah, there are professions like that where you're actually not in the hardcore tech, if you will. And we have found that, over the years, helping people switch into tech, there's lots of different professions that actually suit people very well. From the backgrounds where they have worked in before. So, for example, we have nurses who become UX designers, or even taxi drivers who become web developers, and it's very gratifying to see this happening and people making these career switches and becoming, changing their whole lives and having being so much happier for it. So yeah, it's just been great. And perhaps a few words about how we do that. So it's online, as I said, and we have every student that takes our courses gets a kind of support team of 3 people, a mentor, a tutor, and a career specialist. And they help the student through the 10-month course to learn the new profession. And at the end, we're also helping our students get a new job, and we have a job guarantee as well that says that if you don't manage to find a job within 6 months after completing the course, you get your tuition back. But yeah, it's just been super interesting to see all these career switching happening, and that it's possible to make a career switch.
And I'm curious, is there any patterns or trends around the kind of ages that you're helping? Is it younger people? Are we seeing maybe young mums or older mums when the kids have left school and they want to focus on their career? Are there any trends around the kind of people and age ranges that you're serving right now?
Yeah, so it's anything from like 25 and upwards, typically. Yeah. So people who've had a few years in a career already, but just decide that they want to switch.
Yeah.
And the people that come to us, they often do that because they need that flexibility of studying online. So there might be people who they might have children or that demands their attention, so they can't go back to school and say 8 hours a day. So they need that kind of flexible solution. Or let's say they are disabled, or they maybe they're in a location where there aren't any good schools around, for example. There's lots of different reasons why somebody wanted to study online. A lot of our students actually work full-time while making this career switch. And that, of course, wouldn't be possible if you go back to school kind of thing to continue working.
Yeah, it's so refreshing to hear that, because I think more and more we're seeing these stories of tech skill shortages, and a lot of people convince themselves that, hey, I'm not technical enough. As you said, there are many roles where you don't need to be 100% technical. You can just be good with people and use your transferable skills from your existing job into a tech career that way. And Can you tell me more about the role of your kind of education here and training in addressing this skills gap and actually preparing individuals to future-proof themselves? Because that's ultimately what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, look at society now. I think tech is pretty much everywhere, right? There's tech jobs in medicine and education, and even in farming. Nowadays there's tech jobs. So software is definitely eating the world, and so there is this skills gap. There's not enough tech people to fill all these roles everywhere, and I actually find that super interesting to think about, like, if you're to get into tech, but get into tech in a different industry. So, like, for example, in medicine. So if you're interested in the combination of, let's say that you're interested in medicine and you also want to get into tech, then that can be a really interesting combination. So yeah, there's not enough tech workers. And then at the same time, there's just millions of people everywhere who are unhappy in their careers. And there's also an openness, I think, to switch career, which, maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago was not the case. And nowadays people are sort of thinking about their lives as a multi-career step. So I think that's very, very cool, because it's just great to see all these people learning. And then at the same time, it's very expensive to go back to school, and it's not practical for a lot of people, right? So I think what we do and where we fit in this puzzle is kind of providing that ability to reskill while you're still working, or if you're taking care of children or elderly, or etc., or if you're in a location where there's just no good school, etc. We can help you get into that next career.
It is incredibly cool seeing people doing this in their own time and flexible around their own schedule. Everyone's got so many different commitments now, but being able to build that future, build that career in their own time is incredibly cool. So I'm curious though, how are you seeing remote working leveling the playing field online, and how can tech academies open up job opportunities for talent in developing nations too, aided by the world of remote working? Because it really is opening up the whole world, isn't it? And businesses aren't restricted to just their immediate geographic location.
That's probably the one thing that I'm most excited about, and for the future. I think that there is, people are equally intelligent everywhere in the world. That's my point of view. And so, but opportunities are obviously very different in different countries. And so what that means is that there's millions or billions of people on the globe that are just not, are basically a kind of a hidden workforce that is not being utilized. That's one way of seeing it. On the individual level, of course, they're not reaching their own potential. And with online and with remote, as you mentioned, we can actually unlock all of these people. And I think that's going to be amazing to see in the next 10, 20 years, how that actually happens. The technology is there. The question is, I think, one of affordability. How can we make it, accessible to a lot of people around the globe, and still have it be very effective in its education? So that's I think the core problem that we're trying to solve, if you will, is that trying to be inclusive and effective at the same time. And if you think about it, like historically, education has either been exclusive and effective, like Harvard. Like, not everyone gets into Harvard, but if you get into Harvard, then you're set for life. But it's very exclusive. Or it's been very inclusive and perhaps not the highest quality. So thinking like public school systems, etc., where anyone could get in, but the quality is not there. And so what I think companies like CareerFoundry is out to solve is trying to, for the first time ever, with the use of technology, create a school that is both inclusive and effective, meaning just that it leads to the student outcomes that people want to have at the same time. And so that's the big challenge that we're going after.
Quick reminder that this podcast is brought to you by Flipper, the #1 marketplace to buy and sell online businesses and startups. So the question I'm going to ask you before I go is, do you own or run an online business? And have you ever considered selling your site, your store, your tech, or your app? Well, with world-class combined matching technology, dedicated brokers and end-to-end services, all at the most efficient price, Flipper is making selling your online business simple. So to get a free valuation for your business, simply visit flipper.com/techtalks, where each month thousands of online business owners are exiting with Flipper. Again, to learn more, visit flipper.com/techtalks. And I'm curious, as someone right in the heart of this space, from an edtech standpoint, why do you think online tech schools are offering better career prospects for along with flexible learning towards closing the diversity gaps? Is there any trends you're seeing around that, and why do you think it's working so well?
I think there's two pieces to it. One is that it's just offering actually this ability to career change for people who otherwise wouldn't even be able to in the first place, right? Yeah. So it actually increases the market, and then the other part of it is that it is tech based, and with software you can always improve things over time, and we get a lot of data, on our platform, obviously, that we can use to see how to make it even more effective. So if you have a sort of your typical on-ground school, then it's been pretty difficult to improve that year after year after year. But with technology, of course, you can keep on iterating on software to the point where it just gets better and better and better. So I think there's an inherent advantage there with software.
100% with you on that. And before you came on the podcast, I was doing a little research on you, and I quickly read that you believe that there is a link between reskilling and recession. So if we were to go back in time for a moment, can you expand on why that 2008 recession actually gave rise to the first tech boot camp, and as a macroeconomic headwinds forced actually workers to adapt, and that caused something there and possibly happen again now? But can you expand on that?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So in economic uncertainty, like we had back in 2008, and that we have now again. So what happens in these times is that a lot of people are afraid about their future because of these pressures, right? You see lots of layoffs in the news, and you start worrying about your own future and thinking about taking actions to future-proof yourself, right?
Yeah.
And then what actually happens is a lot more people turn to wanting to, upskill or reskill, just to make sure that they are still being relevant in this very fast-paced technology that's happening and the recession. And so, yeah, in that situation, then there is lots of people who want to reskill, and they are looking at the what's out there. How can you do that? And a lot of people turned to boot camps in back in 2010 was the first boot camp that launched, because it offered this very quick sort of 3 months of getting to a new profession kind of solution, and that was really something that people were wanting back then. I think now we're in a slightly different situation, where the rise of these online schools like CareerFoundry then actually offers the ability to reskill while you're still on the job. And that changes the equation a little bit. You no longer need to wait until you're laid off or quit to actually do this change. And obviously that's easier on your wallet, because you can still have an income while you are changing. So yeah, but there's a lot of parallels between these two times, I think. So that's super interesting.
And as I said at the very beginning of the podcast, many people will be listening, will have that dreaded imposter syndrome. They get in their own way. They convince themselves they're not good enough for a career in tech, even though they've got plenty of transferable skills, and all they need to do is learn a few technical skills to give them that opportunity. But if we look at the difference between, let's say, upskilling and reskilling, can you expand on how 54% of CareerFoundry students actually have zero experience in the field of their course?
Yeah, I think that's first of all, I think it is of course scary to start a new career, right? Like you're starting from scratch again, and you had some skills, but now you decided to start all over again and start from zero. That is super scary, and so I think everyone that goes through this is a hero. Because it's just so scary. But it's helpful to have a community around it, because if you have a community of a couple of thousand other people who are also career changing at the same time, that definitely helps for that imposter syndrome that you mentioned, which pretty much all of our students have at some point during the course. And then even more brave, those people who actually change from a completely different field. As you mentioned, 55% of our students do that. And yeah, they switch, as I said, like from taxi driver to web developer. And we see that it works. And all of our programs are built for complete beginners. So it's a step-by-step approach where it starts from zero. And we take people up to, the skills they need to land a junior job in that profession. And what happens is they actually earn on average about $15,000 more per year after that career change, even though they're in a junior position after the change. And so they're earning back the tuition a couple of times already in that first year. So yeah, it's amazing to see these people who just kind of completely change, and it makes me, believe in humanity so much and their abilities to change. And then we have those that come from similar or like adjacent professions. So let's say print designers that in maybe a profession that is dying, right? That there's not a need for a lot of print design anymore. And or say graphic design might be going the same direction, and they are career changing into maybe UI design. So it's sort of a similar profession, but it's a digital one, and that's of course a slightly easier shift. But yeah, what I would call reskilling is when you are changing into a completely new profession. Whereas upskilling is more sort of adding new skills to your current profession.
Love that. And finally, before I let you go, can you tell me a little bit more about the growing trend of micro-credentials, which I keep reading about, along with alternative forms of education, which are very much now celebrated and no longer stigmatized like they were 5 or 10 years ago? And also, looking at all that, how do you see the future of education evolving?
Yeah, I think one shift that we saw in tech was that employers were not so interested in the credentials they were coming with anymore. So employers kind of stopped looking at which school people went to, or those kind of things, and instead started looking at what can they actually do. Right? What skills do they actually have? So when when we hire an engineer to our team now, we don't look at where they went to school. We look at, can they actually, do the tasks that they need to do. And that's happening across the whole industry in design as well, where basically the portfolio of work that people have is the proof of how good they are. And because of that shift, I think education was able to change as well. So companies, schools like CareerFoundry teach in a way that the students that come out of our courses, they come out with this portfolio of work, and that's the proof of how good they are, and that's good enough to get them hired, get them to the new jobs. So that's one thing that's shifted quite a bit, and I think that's a great thing, by the way, because it just means that it opens up for so many more people who can get into these tech jobs where employers no longer look at even if you have a bachelor or anything like that, but they just look at, can you actually do that job? That's it. Yeah. So that's one thing. Future of education. I think when I think about it, I think about, first of all, the future of work. And I think the future of education is connected to the future of work. Because I think education always follows work in some sense. And if you think, I believe the future of work to be remote. I believe that's what people want in the end. And so I think I'm imagining a world where anyone can learn from anywhere, any profession that they would like to get into, where they can have multiple careers in their lives and work at places across the globe. So, basically have whole online careers, if you will. You could imagine somebody, for example, growing up in Peru, let's say, and learning with CareerFoundry to become a UX designer and working for a San Francisco startup, for example, from their home. And so, I find it very inspiring to see how this will unlock all of these people everywhere on the world.
Yeah, you and me both. And of course, we started the podcast talking about your inspirational origin story and what put you on this path. And as we come full circle, they do say you are what you read. So I'm going to ask you now to reflect on a book that maybe inspired you or means something to you that we can add to our Amazon wish list for listeners to check out and maybe learn from that book too. But if I was to ask you to leave me one book, what would that book be and why?
I would pick a book called The Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck.
Yeah.
This is not a new book, and probably a lot of your listeners know about this book. But I found it very inspiring because it tells basically the same story as we are telling with CareerFoundry, in that it says that individuals who believe that their abilities can be developed through effort are going to be more successful than those that have a fixed mindset, that basically believe that their abilities are set and cannot really change. And of course, that sort of sounds like anyone would agree with that. That sort of sounds like it's not big news, but I think it has a profound impact when you think about people's ability to change. We talked about career change and that, that people are making these fantastic switches from very different types of professions into a new career, and that this is possible. It's maybe not something that everyone would think is possible, but we are incredible. Like humans are incredible in that we can change, and we can learn, and we can change. And so this mindset of the growth mindset that we can always change inspired me a lot. And I also have kids, and with kids, I learned through this book that you have to be careful with how you talk to them, about how you praise them. So if you say, for example, that, oh, you're so smart to your kids, then they might learn a fixed mindset where they're thinking that they're so smart, so they actually don't have to learn. So that's very tricky. So you always have to talk to your kids with more talking about the effort that they put in. So you say, oh, you put in so many hours, learning that thing, and now you grade at it. If you talk like that, then they learn that it's the effort that makes the change and that they can change. So that's has helped me. This book has helped me both in my in my job with my company and also personally with my own children.
What a beautiful moment to end the podcast on. But before I do let you go, for anyone listening, where's the best place for them to find you, your team online, and also find out more about anything that we've talked about today?
Yeah, you can find CareerFoundry on your typical social channels or careerfoundry.com. On YouTube, we have a lot of stories about people who switch career, so that might be an interesting place to look at. And myself as well, Martin.Ramsin will be my Twitter profile. And it was a lot of fun. So thanks a lot.
No, thank you. I think we covered so much there, from the role of education and training and addressing the skills gap and preparing individuals to future-proof themselves, the difference between upskilling and reskilling. That powerful figure you dropped there, 54% of students have zero experience in their field of the course that they've chosen. There's a perfect opportunity for anyone to enter a career in tech. And thank you for sharing that, your origin story, and even having time to leave us with a great book too. So thanks for sharing that with me today. Thanks
a lot.
Wow, what an amazing story. And I also loved hearing about how remote working is levelling the playing field, and as online tech academies are opening up job opportunities for talent in developing nations, aided by the world of remote working. So much has changed in the last few years, some for the bad and a lot for the good. So I cannot thank Martin enough for sharing his story, and also the link between reskilling and recessions, and why that 2008 recession gave rise to the first tech boot camp. And maybe it'll do something similar this time, because that growing trend of micro-credentials and alternative forms of education are now being celebrated by employers rather than stigmatised. But let me know your thoughts. We covered a lot today, and Martin shared his story that took him from Stockholm to Berlin. But I want to hear your story, your experiences, your insights. And as always, you can email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, just at Neil C. Hughes. All I will ask is you send me a quick little note saying, Neil, I'll listen to the show, and not just hit the connect button. But that's it for today, so hopefully you'll join me again tomorrow. And until next time, don't be a stranger.